Hi there! With just 2 days left before the double patch drops and Ender is already covered, it's high time we take a look at Belka. She's an electric vanguard boasting high mobility and decent damage. Like Enderus, she provides negative charge, one of the core mechanics of the electric team. With so much competition for those coveted lineup slots, I'll walk you through her gameplay, what she brings to the team and where her strengths and weaknesses lie. Without further ado, let's get to it. Belka starts the battle by using her S2. This is a single target attack dealing 130% of her attack as electric damage. The damage multiplier is increased by 5% for each tile Belka moves before skill activation. As a vanguard, she has a base movement range of 9 tiles, so by fully exhausting her movement like this, the skill's damage increases by 45% to 175% of her attack. Aside from the juicy multiplier, this being a single target attack will also trigger the extra damage from negative charge. Note that this gameplay is from a time before Lena's expansion key, so the fixed damage is still just 30% of the original damage instead of 60%. After the damage goes through, Belka gains active engagement. You should be familiar with this buff from Mosin's kit. It converts the next attack's typing into electric and grants a 30% damage bonus. This is here because the S2 grants Belka a restrictive version of extra command, allowing her the use of a basic attack or her S1, both of which deal physical damage without the buff. The S2 has 1 turn cooldown, so unfortunately it won't always be available to chain it with Belka's S1. Before we proceed with the S1, take note that Belka passively applies negative charge before attacking. Since the boss is already affected by the debuff, you can observe the minor fixed damage corresponding to 3% of the applier's attack as evidence. As you are hopefully aware by now, negative charge is a trigger of lever support actions, so having this in her kit means Belka has at least some synergy with the electric core. She herself gains 5% bonus crit rate up to 30% whenever negative charge is applied. Alongside Enderus, this bonus is maxed within the first round. As for the S1, it is another single target ability dealing 130% of her attack as physical damage, which here gets converted to electric damage via active engagement, thereby triggering the fixed damage from negative charge once more. The skill costs 1 confectance point to activate, but if it crits, the cost is refunded. Since Belka gains up to 30% bonus crit rate from her passive, chances are she won't have to pay the fee. Once the skill concludes, Belka can choose an empty tile within a 6 tile range to teleport to. With these 2 abilities and 2 activations of negative charge, she dealt almost the equivalent of a 400% damage multiplier, which would be even more with Lena's expansion key on the lineup. She also triggered QJ twice this turn, making this electric burn mixed composition fairly potent at the time. However, when thinking of her utility for lever, you can already see that her negative charge application is insufficient, falling short of 1 to exhaust all of lever's support actions. On the next turn, Belka uses her ultimate. It has no cooldown, but a hefty cost of 4 confectance points. Belka's only means of restoring points is passively 1 point at the start of her turn. Assuming her S1 always crits, thereby refunding its cost, she will use the ultimate every 4 turns or twice per gunsmoke battle. That said, her ultimate is another single target ability dealing 160% of her attack as electric damage. Like her S2, the damage multiplier increases by 5% per tile moved before skill activation, up to 205% with her base movement range. Belka also gains continual release for 2 turns. Once the support actions from Mosin and QJ conclude, the buff takes effect. Continual release activates at the end of her action, making her attack the nearest target for 80% of her attack, dealing single target electric damage. Like everything in her kit, this attack also applies negative charge and activates its bonus damage effect. With her ultimate and this buff, she again applied 2 instances of negative charge this turn. The 2-turn duration of the buff starts ticking down on this turn, so best case scenario, she has 50% uptime of continual release. Note that this attack also triggers a support action from QJ. Round 3 mirrors the first round, since her S2 is off its 1 turn cooldown, allowing the use of the S2 plus S1 combo. The only difference this time is the still active continual release. After concluding her turn with the teleport, the buff activates, attacking the nearest target for the 3rd single target attack and instance of negative charge application this round. If Belka could do this more consistently, she'd have her place by lever's side. But alas, her rotation is very uneven, an issue that wasn't addressed by her expansion key at all. That being said, on turn 4 you're looking at the worst moment in Belka's gameplay, the dreaded intersection of the S2's cooldown and a lack of confectance points to use the ultimate. In this situation, you only get a single attack, and to add insult to injury, without active engagement and before her expansion key, her S1 will deal physical damage. If Mika ever decides to give Belka's kit a second look, I hope they address her terribly slow confectance gain, so that she can simply alternate the S2 plus S1 combo with the ultimate, granting her permanent uptime of continual release. That way, she'd consistently apply 3 negative charges, rather than fluctuating from 1 up to 3 times. Having gone over the first 4 turns of battle, you have seen all of Belka's rotation, which from now on simply repeats itself. I've highlighted in yellow subscript the number of negative charge applications each round. Using the ultimate every 4 rounds presupposes that every execution of the S1 landed a critical hit, thereby refunding its confectance cost. Otherwise, you'll be staring down an even bigger mess. Her gameplay doesn't change with the upgrades nor with her expansion key. Now while I've been criticizing Belka for her insufficient synergy with Leather, I do want to highlight that Belka was a very strong character at her release. Her damage at V0 is nothing to scoff at, and as you could see from the showcase, she was a good addition to single target focused lineups such as this one. That said, here's her power progression chart. Unlike more recent DPS characters, her damage increases are rather modest as compared to her V0 performance. Her V6 about doubles her baseline damage, and none of her upgrades add any form of utility to her kit. Therefore, there's little reason to overinvest in Belka. After Jiang Yu's rework, there's barely any wiggle room when it comes to the Electric team's lineup. Since she can't replace Andorus due to her inconsistent negative charge application, your only use case for Belka would be outside of boss battles, where Vanguard mobility is more relevant. In case Belka is your waifu, let me also briefly go over her equipment, starting with her keys. Her 4th key grants Belka a temporary 10% attack boost when using her as 2. The description in this picture claims the bonus applies to her basic attack, but as far as I'm aware, this is false. Her 3rd key grants Belka an additional tile of movement for 2 turns, if she is within 5 tiles of an enemy when the round starts. Remember that movement range translates to higher skill damage multipliers for Belka's S2 and ultimate, so this effect works well for her. For boss battles, you absolutely want to bring her 5th key, which grants her 10% bonus crit rate and bonus damage, starting from the 2nd round. In particular, the bonus crit rate should ensure that she will always get the S1's confectance cost refunded. Finally, if you're in dire need of buff dispel, you may use her 6th key, which adds this utility to her ultimate. Since this will have significant downtime, it's not the best source of buff removal though. Note that Belka's Carmen key sounds quite decent, as it grants 5% attack and a 10% damage bonus if the character moved before attacking. However, this effect only applies to the first instance of damage, so characters with multiple attacks within a turn, such as Kluke, or characters with out-of-turn attacks, won't benefit much from this. As for Belka's signature weapon, Sylvan Elf, it should come as no surprise that this is unnecessary. The weapon effect grants Belka a personal damage boost of up to 25% without further utility. As you could see from the damage chart, the weapon increases Belka's total damage output by 5% as compared to an unrefined Planeta. Belka is able to quickly stack up Planeta's damage bonus due to her S2 plus S1 combo, yielding a total of 3 stacks in the first turn already, making Planeta a worthy alternative. Moreover, at higher calibrations, Planeta will outclass the damage bonus from Sylvan Elf by up to 15%. Since Planeta is very accessible, there's no reason to discuss other alternatives. In summary, Belka is one of the better representatives of the Vanguard class. At low investment, she sits at the top of the roll with good mobility and decent damage. Due to her ability to proc on average 2 single target attacks per round, she saw some play initially in a mixed electro-burn lineup, offering cost-effective value at the time. However, her fluctuating rotation due to her lacking confectance gain was a concern then and became a major issue once the Electric team came together. Since Leather requires up to 3 well-timed applications of negative charge, Belka would have had a spot on the team if only she could have delivered on that promise. Instead, she applies a debuff anywhere from 1 to 3 times per turn, making Andorus a better choice for the task. Worse yet, Belka offers no other utility to boost Leather's damage, making her interchangeable with an invested Mosin Nagant. To add insult to injury, her expansion key didn't remedy any of these issues, besides changing the damage type of her S1 when used on its own. This is worse than not having an expansion key at all, since now her only hope lies in the developers revisiting her kit. All that being said, if you like Belka, she's usable at V0 and can be used anywhere that doesn't require you to min-max your mono-electric team. She's by no means a bad character, but for that lineup, it's more cost effective to use a V4 plus Mosin or add an off-element character that either synergizes with the team or simply has more investment. And with that, we've come to the end of this video. Hopefully, this review provided you with a deeper understanding of Belka's kit and her current place in the meta. If Belka is your waifu, don't let my evaluation override your instincts. Most of the game is perfectly doable without worrying about the most optimized lineup. While she may not be the ideal choice for Gunsmoke, new challenges like Face Clash and PvAX are coming in a few weeks, giving you more opportunities to explore different team variations. In any case, thank you so much for watching. See you next time.